record in here. Get the encoders up and running.
Welcome to M2Techcast, a live internet radio show offering the latest news and interviews with the people driving business, technology, and politics in Michigan. Now, your hosts, Matt Roush and Mike Brennan.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another Zoom edition of the M2Techcast. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, we'd like to show you Dave Phillips' bar. Why don't you give us a quick flash of that, Dave? So he's producing the show. We don't want to. There it is out now. Isn't that inviting? He said when the pandemic is lifted, everybody's invited to his bar. So.
Oh,
yeah.
This is how I'm maintaining my sanity. This is how it's working. Yes,
absolutely.
He drinks heavily and he's good.
Looks like day drinking is on.
Yes, the drinking light is on. Yes. So. All right, so we got a great show for you today. Most of it is COVID-19 related, but we still have some current sponsors we got to get in there. One of those are Tamara Shoemaker from the University of Detroit Mercy, and she does her Cyber Patriot program. Why don't you start off with explaining that, and then we'll go into the summer camp. This may be the first time folks have heard of Cyber Patriot.
Sure. So Cyber Patriot is a national competition that's run from October until February, March. Usually they hold the national championships in March. It is a very inclusive cybersecurity competition for middle school and high schools. It takes only 2 to 5 players to play. And again, they play in rounds all the way until February. And then the top 28 teams are flown into Maryland. And they go head to head and they do Microsoft, Facebook, Cisco, a bunch of challenges. They have red teams that are there attacking them, and it's real live fire at that point. And the winners, take trophies and take scholarships home and that kind of thing. The normal rounds each month are virtual. And so in this kind of a situation, we could continue on. But we were interrupted. Our finals was interrupted this year. It's been rescheduled for May 5th. Because of the coronavirus and everyone having to be separate. And so they aren't flying them into Maryland this year. This is the first year and hopefully only year that we'll have to do the actual championship virtually as well.
That'll be interesting. Will that be live so people can watch?
I think so. May 3rd, they've took a month to sort of get together with their sponsors and get together with the folks that do the challenges and that kind of thing to sort of figure out how they're going to do it. Because it is a team sport, so 1 to 5 players play. So now how they do that distantly, that part had to be figured out. How do they interject all of the other things into it? And so they've got it all figured out and they're going to go May 3rd.
Now, do they have the kids build like websites or something and have people try to hack into them, or what's the nature of the competition?
No, it's almost like they are the admin team for a small company, and so that company has already a company online that has both Linux operating systems and Microsoft operating systems, a Cisco network. So all the normal things that you would see a small company running, they have to run and protect now. Now they have to find all the vulnerabilities in that system and protect it, and then also protect it from the red team or any other things that end up happening in the daily business that would happen, in the traffic that would normally happen.
So it sounds pretty realistic then.
Right. It's the whole point is this is real online or hands-on, real live, what we would expect some folks to be able to do in cybersecurity.
Now, how is this going to impact your summer camps? I mean, clearly none of us know how long this is going to go on.
Right. Right. So normally our summer camps are face-to-face, right? And they're a 5-day, half-day camps. And then the last day we have a smaller version of the competition. And those kids are competing against nationwide, just like they would in a regular season, but only against the kids that are playing that week in summer camp. But so this year what they've done, because they were able to push forward the national championship distantly, they were able to put some things in place that now we'll be able to do the summer camps virtually as well. So we
Okay.
have several locations across Michigan that we'll be running them in, but we'll be able to do it in a virtual space should we need to. Now, if for some reason we get the all clear, all of those venues that we have across the state will then go face to face. But otherwise, we've got it all planned out so that they can do it virtually.
So what are the locations in Michigan, for these summer camps?
So we have a lot. So we have Battle Creek at the Air National Guard base. They have 2 weeks, so both July 20th and the 24th. We have it up in Traverse City at the Michigan Northwestern College. They also are doing both weeks. Grand Rapids, the WMCAT is also doing both weeks, and we have it in Ann Arbor at Washtenaw Community College. They're doing it just the 1 week. We have the Macomb ISD out in Clinton Township, and they're doing, not only are they doing both weeks, but they're doing 2 different sessions each week, one for just middle school, one for high school. This is all open to middle school and high school. We're up in Marquette, Michigan, at Northern Michigan University. We're over in Northville at St. Paul's Lutheran Church and School. The Oakland Tech Centers are running one in Pontiac, Royal Oak, and Wixom. Lapeer schools are running some, and Romeo schools are running some. So all of that stuff can be found on www.michigan, so mi-cyberpatriot.com for all the links for registration for those.
And then you have all the dates listed there as well and all that?
I do. Yep, absolutely. And all the registration links are all there and ready to go. So all you have to do is click and go ahead and go through and register your son or daughter.
Okay. Let's see what else. So how many folks have gone through that program so far?
So, 5 years ago we started, there was only 4 teams playing in Michigan when we first started. By the end of that season, we had 25. This year we had 182 teams, so we've had over 900 kids go through. And then in the summer camps, they've been increasing as well. So this last year we had 250 kids go through the summer, but now with this many camps and the fact that we're going to be doing it virtually, we're just going to blow the roof right off of those past performances as far as being able to do this. The really cool thing about this is we always needed a lot of volunteers to run these programs, and we still do need some volunteers to do that, and we still need sponsors, but that's cut things way back as far as that goes. The only downside that we have as far as this is going is that normally this is very inclusive, right? It's very cheap and very easy to run. And our camps, normally we supply all of the PCs and things like that. So now a person will have to have, in order for a kid to do this, they'll have to be able to have a PC at home to be able to log on and be involved. And that's the only downside as far as I'm concerned about, how we're going to go through this summer, is the fact that, if they don't have a personal PC at home, then they won't be able to come to the camp. And that didn't used to be anything that we had to worry about because we supplied them.
So how can our listeners help this program? What kind of help do you need?
So we need folks that are actually cybersecurity people, because I really truly believe in both during the summer camps and then when our season starts again in fall. I really believe that these kids, we can tell them over and over again as instructors and as teachers that there are good possibilities for jobs and careers in this area, but it really becomes live when they can see themselves there. So being able to step up and become a mentor and step up and be a volunteer for this, where they can see them and they can, it becomes real. They can talk about their careers, they can talk about their educational pathways, those kinds of things, so that everybody can see themselves in those positions and understand that it's real. It's not just stuff that we're blowing smoke.
All right. Now, when students come through this program, they're high school kids, right?
No, we have both middle school and high schools. They actually have 3 programs. So they have the grade school stuff. So for K through 5, there's 3 free video games. And they also just came out with a literary series. So there's some little storybooks as well for those kids, just to learn awareness. And then by middle school, we start the competition. So middle school only competes against middle school. And then we have also another division called Open Division, and that's where the high school kids all play. And it's not just, by the way, high school teams. It can also be a church group. It can be a rec center. All of those kind of areas can make themselves a team. Homeschool kids can make themselves a team. So we're not worried about next season. If we have to do it virtually, this is not a problem for this group because they're used to doing this virtually and delivering it that way. I mean, and that's part of the deal why it's not as cost prohibitive, because we don't have to move them anywhere, right? We don't have to transfer kids.
Right. Talk a little bit about the elementary school part of this, how it starts. It basically starts with training in how to be safe online for the younger ones, right?
Right. We want to make sure that they're being careful, right? They're not oversharing. They're not talking to people that they shouldn't be, those kind of things. But we're not doing it in a lecture time way or any kind of way we would do it with older kids. We're doing it with video games. So there are 3 age-appropriate video games for kindergartners, 2nd grader and 3rd graders, and then, 4th and 5th graders that sort of work their way towards becoming cybersecurity more aware and more able to, keep themselves safe. So at first it's just an awareness. And it's just fun little video games that they're playing. They don't really know that they're learning. They're just having fun and getting points and that kind of thing. One of them is a kind of like, I can't remember what the darn game was, but Space Invaders or Space Asteroids or whatever that was, the very, very older game, where you're shooting lasers at things. So they talk about it being malware and you need to have virus protection and that kind of thing. And then if you have virus protection, you can bring down the bad guys that are coming at you and all that kind of good stuff. So you have a good time. My grandchildren have tried it and they said it's okay.
Okay, great.
I'm not going to get way over the top because they love all these wonderful video games, and this one is not real complicated, right? It's not got all the bells and whistles that some of the, gamer community is looking for, but it's a really good tool. And there's a ton of resources that I can give in that area as well.
And then for the high school kids, when they come out of there, do they typically go into some STEM-related fields or cybersecurity-related fields, or how do you track them after that?
So that's the really important piece, is that we're trying to inspire them to go into STEM educational fields, right? We're trying to get them to use their big brain, right, and not their physical brawn in order to get where they need to get to. And we try to show them all the different pathways, right? There's no straight line. There's not one way to do it. And at the end of the day, if they've been involved in Cyber Patriot, they also will have a micro credential when they leave, because they'll have some digital badging so that they can take and put those on their transcripts and on their resumes. And so they've had some hands-on experience, right? That real live fire hands-on experience that they can take with them and build from there. And then again, we've told them all the different pathways, right? We've spent a lot of time with them because this is an after-school program and it happens for quite a while. In fact, the season is from October until February, but truly teams that are taking this seriously continue all year round, because there are practice rounds that continue through the season, all the way around, so that you can continue to practice. And so a lot of these kids go for other credentialing because this work, the coaches that are really working it really hard are taking this material and putting it into their everyday teaching and expanding on the things in cybersecurity that they're doing in the classroom. We're real excited about the growth.
And do college recruiters, I know you probably like to recruit a few of these folks to your program at Detroit Mercy, but do other college recruiters work these kids too? I mean, I'm thinking of a small STEM school in Southfield, perhaps,
There you go. Yeah.
There.
I'm sure if LTU saw Cyber Patriot on their transcripts, they would understand that they've gotten hands-on experience and that they would definitely be somebody that they'd want to pull into their IT, department. But both educators, educators and employers already know to look for Cyber Patriot on kids' resumes. It's a national program. There was over 6,500 teams across the country playing. It's in Canada, it's in Australia, it's in the UK. So it's huge, and employers know for sure to look for these kids.
All right, we got about a minute left, actually less than a minute. So quickly, one more time, where is that URL, website address, that people can find out more information?
So it's micyberpatriot.com, and you can get all the information for the season, everything that we're doing. We normally have a spring event where we thank everybody and give trophies out for the state leaders. We weren't able to do that this year. We're going to probably have to do that virtually. And all the camp information is all there. Just easy to follow links. You can just go right to the registration. I've already started to get some registrations.
All right, good.
Sounds
all right, thanks very much, Tamara Shoemaker with Michigan Cyber Patriot UD Mercy. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with another segment of the M2Techcast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching the M2Techcast on mitechnews.tv.
Thanks.
Lawrence Technological University graduates earn a degree and a higher starting salary. In fact, when it comes to earning potential, the Brookings Institution ranks LTU 5th among U.S. colleges and universities. Be enriched. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
As a Lawrence Technological University graduate, you're not only marketable, you're worth more.
Russ, you'll be
Yes,
coming
more.
in next.
According to payscale.com, when it
Okay.
comes to graduates
Can you hear me
out,
okay?
LTU is in
Yeah.
America's top 100. Be invaluable. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast.
And we have calling in from Matt's favorite vacation spot, Traverse City, Russell Schindler. And Russell, I've known Russell for a long time. Traverse City New Tech, I think when I first met you, what was it, a decade ago?
Yep.
Or kind of a long time.
Yeah, it was a
and-
while ago.
Yes. And what Russell has before COVID-19 pandemic, he had a really great a environmental app that was for testing water samples, things like that. Why don't you talk about a little bit of that first, and then we'll talk about how you've evolved that.
Yeah, so I'm actually a geologist, so I have been doing environmental investigations, collecting samples, writing reports. And just over the years started developing technology to collect samples. And we basically just last year rolled out a mobile app for facilitating and the data associated with collecting environmental samples. And when you collect environmental samples, you got to go through the contamination. So being able to use a mobile app to do that and be able to track everything. The big picture, what we do is we collect the samples, we submit the samples to the lab. We got a lab app as well. And then when the lab's done with the analysis, we can actually generate reports and show you where the contamination is and isn't in a matter of seconds. So it's a pretty neat little platform.
Okay.
So it's geographic information systems kind of, or?
Well, kind of. We don't actually, not a true GIS system. We're actually in a lot of ways better. GIS is very powerful and they can do things that we can't, but we do some things that they can as well. So.
All right, and now you've morphed that into something that can be used to track samples for COVID-19 testing, right?
Yeah, so back about a month ago now, it seems like forever because we've been down.
Yeah.
But
Longest
the
April
president,
in history, right?
I know. The president came out and talked about doing these remote sample collection things in Walmart parking lots and Rite Aid parking lots, and that it occurred to me like, well, that's a lot of remote data, and you're collecting a sample, sending it to a lab, and then reporting the results. I'm like, that's what we do. And I'm like, how are they going to do that? And I started seeing pictures of how they're doing it. And they're out there with a clipboard and a piece of paper, and they're writing everything down. I'm like, when you get to the level that they need to get to in terms of testing everybody, paper and clipboard is not going to cut it anymore. So that's when it occurred to me. I'm like, they've got to step up their digital game, or it's going to get out of hand. And so that's kind of why I'm like, we can modify our app to help with the COVID-19 data collection and the reporting. So,
and you've done exactly
this.
that, right? Yeah, you've done exactly that. You've modified.
Yeah. It can be used right now, but it needs to be optimized. One of the things we still got to do is make sure we build the HIPAA compliance part of it. And so we're still working on it, but yes, we're basically mostly looking for people to start using it. And we've talked to a lot of people, but here's the problem. Nobody has any tests. I've literally talked to dozens and dozens of health departments and hospitals, and the one answer they all come back with is, well, we only have a handful of tests. Like, we don't need software to manage, 15 samples. So that's really the biggest problem, is the lack of actual tests. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm hearing that. We've been inundated with stuff on this, so I wouldn't say Matt and I are experts, but we've heard from a lot of experts, and that seems to be the critical issue right now is lack of testing.
Correct. And, you know, if you don't have tests, you don't need software to manage things you don't have. So.
Right, right.
But-
And what are you hearing from the people you talk to about that? Where are we on both testing of active cases and testing for antibodies to see, you know, to figure out how many people have already had it?
Well, I don't even know of anybody that even has their hand on an antibody test. If you know, I'd love to find out, because I'd actually like to find out if I've had it, and I'm positive for the antibody. And then, honest, when I do talk to people about our software, their question to me is like, "Do you know who has tests? Like, can you hook us up?" Like, they're looking for people who can supply large amounts of tests. We're actually talking with a couple of laboratories, and they don't have all their tests yet. There's a company out of Ann Arbor that is looking to kind of get in. They've got their own proprietary tests, and they're waiting for some FDA approval on it. And they want to team up with us to actually do private industry testing, like literally go to the private companies that probably more like the frontline companies like Meijer, Walmart, those companies that are they have their people out there on the front lines being exposed. Maybe they want to set up like weekly testing of all their employees. So as soon as we can get the tests and then we marry our software together, we've got a business product where people can, set up a mobile location, do the tests, and actually have the results in real time. And one of the other things that I think is going to be a big market is they've determined that you can actually detect the presence of COVID-19 virus in sewer systems and at wastewater treatment plants. And so if you use something like our software, where you go out and you start backtracking, along the sewer system, you'll be able to identify neighborhoods and maybe even individual homes where the virus is coming from. But if you can narrow down a small area, a block, a neighborhood, where the virus is maybe originating. And if they do this routine sampling, maybe even daily, and when they see the virus popping up, they can then set up a mobile hotspot, testing location in that neighborhood and start testing the residents of that neighborhood, or even go door to door and offer the tests, so that when this thing gets down to a reasonable level, it's going to be like a game of whack-a-mole, right? These things are going to pop up, and it's going to be the government's responsibility to whack these things back down, test the people, quarantine them, contact trace them, and then test those people in quarantine as necessary. And if they don't, speed is going to be of the essence, right? You can't do contact tracing, 10 days after they've had contact. You have to be able to do it quickly. So.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, trying to remember who you were in contact with 10 days ago could be a challenge. I mean,
exactly.
I've been cooped up in my house for a month. It'd be pretty easy for me right now, but not under normal circumstances.
Right. Yeah, but as they open up the economy, open things back up again, you'll get back out there. I'll get back out there, and the idea is like you have to have real time testing, real time results. And then, if all of a sudden, you test positive, you can be like, okay, here's where I was at in the last 10 days or however long they need to have it. But it's going to be important to be responsive. If that test takes, 2 weeks to get the results back, it's just going to be too long. They got to be able to get the tests, be able to not just, as soon as those lab results are in, and they got some tests out there, it's 15 minutes. You want to be able to report that right away, show it on a map. If you're testing the sewer system, you don't want the sewer system results and locations to be reported, a day or two later. You want to know 2 minutes later, here's a positive result, here's where it's at, move upstream. That way, and people can coordinate then. You don't have to, go back to the office, compile your results, and then go back out in the field. If you can see it all while you're out there, you can then start to do a proper investigation.
Right. I
That's
watched
really
your
the key.
Facebook video last weekend where you're out strolling with your dog talking about that very thing where
Yeah,
uh, that would make it so much simpler to really zero in on precisely where hotspots are, right?
exactly. Exactly. You know, it's all about being able to make actionable decisions, you know, see actionable data and then make decisions based on the look of that data, right? And that's really what we're lacking. I mean, if you just go back to what the CDC actually recommends in a pandemic, it is test, quarantine the people that are positive, do contact tracing, test those people, and quarantine as necessary. And even quarantining people even before you test them. If you've been in contact with somebody who's positive for coronavirus, you should be tested, or you should quarantine yourself right away and then obviously get tested. So,
Yeah, therein
and
lies the
then
rub. Good.
yeah, the other important part is the antibody testing, right? There needs to be widespread antibody testing. You know, they did a study over in Massachusetts. They took 200 people randomly off the street. 1/3 of those people came back with the antibody. 1/3. And
Wow.
so, you know, there's a lot of people out there that have probably already had it. You know, I actually was down in New Orleans the second week in February.
Hmm.
A week after I got back,
Oh, you're
I
breaking up.
didn't feel so good. You know, for about 4 days, I've had a little fever. How's that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're cut.
Okay, okay.
Your screen was frozen for a second. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was down in New Orleans and, you know, came back and I, you know, I'm suspicious that I actually may have had it and I've recovered and I may be positive for the antibodies, which would be great. One other thing that I'd like to say is the President of the United States needs to use the War Production Act of 1950, Wartime Production Act, and literally use that act to start producing tests. And, you know, Mike, you've been at a lot of these tech events, like as I have, where, you know, pharmaceutical companies get up there and biomedical companies and they pitch their product. And one of the things that the business hook that these companies are always looking for is scarcity. They like the subscription model and they want to be the only one that has a product. You know, the president says he's hesitant to use the Wartime Production Act to make these laboratories and these testing companies produce the test. Well, I'm here to tell you that they like scarcity when it comes to tests, right? If you try and buy a test right now, a COVID-19 test, it's $100 a sample. $100 a sample.
Yikes.
And you know, it should be a lot less than that. No, you know, and the testing companies, the labs, they want scarcity, right? Because scarcity means higher prices, better profits. And I'm not accusing them all of that, but I can tell you as an industry as a whole, they're not necessarily worried about getting cheap product out there in mass. You know, it's not a great business model for them. And so the president needs to go, look, you need to produce them. We're going to give you a fair price. And then, you know, get as many people making as many tests as possible. They don't have to all be 15-minute tests. Even a 2-day test, you know, where they take the swab and they send it to the lab, it doesn't matter. You know, we prefer the 15-minute test, but if you can get, you know, 100 million 2-day tests out there, then do that. There's got to be something that they do. And I would strongly encourage every state rep, you know, everybody contact their government, their government representatives and tell them they need to tell the president to use the Wartime Production Act to get these things out there. Because it's just frankly ridiculous. You know, South Korea, the reason they got a handle on things is they started testing everybody, like everybody. So
we're gonna have to leave it at that. We're out of time. Why don't you give your website address where people can find out more?
Yep, sampleserve.com, sampleserve.com.
All right, Russell Schindler, thanks for being on the show today.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with another segment of the M2Techcast in just a moment. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching at mitechnews.tv.
What do you get at Lawrence Technological University?
Go ahead and turn your mic.
Great labs and studios, supportive professors, plus a full campus life, NAIA athletics, and all the software you need to
How do I
succeed.
pronounce
Be
your
smart,
last
be
name?
more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Planet Campus visits to meet with
Nimagata
counselors,
is my last
faculty, and
name.
coaches. Why wait?
Nimagata, okay.
Find out more at ltu.edu.
Sorry, we're on commercial.
Lawrence Technological University is all about opportunities. You learn beyond the campus, doing real-world research for top companies and honing your skills through co-ops and internships. Apply what you learn. Be challenged. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Planet Campus visits to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're back with another segment of the M2Techcast.
And we have calling in, I think you're in Austin, aren't you? Austin, Texas?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Tarun Nemagata?
That's right.
I got it. Okay, I'm notorious for butchering names. So, speaking of contact testing,
I was going to say hi, Rochelle. Yeah, right. As she's watching. Yeah.
Speaking
That's
of
the one I
contact
butchered.
testing, yes, I don't know if you. I think you were listening to Russell Schindler in the previous one, right?
I was, yes.
Okay, and so he was saying what's really needed is contact testing. And I know that's not what you started your company out to be, but like everybody else in these pandemic times, you're adapting your company to the needs of the time. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I previously started a company called Mutual Mobile. And Mutual Mobile, I started when I was 20 years old, and we grew to over 300 people building iPhone apps for everybody, including Google and Android, and we became one of the largest app development companies in the country. When the pandemic came along, me and my co-founder at Mutual Mobile decided, in a time of great crisis, we have to ask ourselves what we can do for our country. And, we know how to build apps. And so we thought, what's the best app we could build for this virus to save lives and reopen the economy? And as we started to dig into the literature on what mankind has used to fight previous diseases and outbreaks, contact tracing kind of was a clear winner as one of the ways that we've fought and won the previous wars against MERS and SARS and Ebola. And so when the coronavirus comes along, we realized actually, so just to take a step back, what contact tracing really is that anytime somebody has tested positive, you interview them and you find out everybody that they've come into contact with, and you make sure that every one of those people gets quarantined and or tested. And we chase this virus down. Instead of shutting down the whole country, we get very specific about where the virus is and we chase it down. And that's really the only way to win in the long run. If you assume that testing capacity is going to be limited for a long time, it's not possible or affordable to really test everybody every single day. Given that, the only way for us to allocate our testing capacity where it's needed the most is through contact tracing. Now, contact tracing has been around for a long time. You don't really need technology to do it. You can do it with a phone call. The problem is, if you read about what's going on with these all over the world, they've never had to do contact tracing at this scale, where they're having to contact trace for hundreds and thousands of people at once. And they're overwhelmed and they're throwing up their hands and they're saying, I don't have the time to do this. So technology is really going to be a big boon here. It's the only way for us to really automate the process of contact tracing and to do things that sometimes, manual contact tracers just cannot do, because they're relying when they interview you for you to remember. And, if you're like me, your memory is not quite perfect. And, I can't quite remember, everybody that I've come into contact with or every place that I've touched. So technology is a tool to effectively jog our memory and automate that process of contact tracing. So we can give public health a better tool for their response.
So are you using cell phone contact data, or what are you using instead of people's memories, or to augment people's memories?
That's right. So we built an app called Corona Trace, which you can check out on coronatrace.org, and it uses the phone GPS to automate the process of contact tracing. So if you and I were to come into contact, let's say you were to sit on a park bench and I sat on that park bench an hour later, then later on you get tested positive and you go to the app and you say, I was confirmed positive, then I would get an alert saying an hour before you, someone that tested positive was at this location. So please take some precautions, maybe don't hug your grandma. And if testing capacity becomes available, make sure that you get tested.
Okay. So is this app available right now, or is it still in development?
So the app is in a pilot program in New York City right now. We have over 500 people in New York City using the app. They've given us really valuable feedback for what we call the 1.0 release. We've incorporated all that into a 1.1 release, which we're planning to also put out into an expanded pilot program. And then in a period of about a week or 2 weeks or so, we plan to release this app in the App Store with support from public health authorities at the state, city level across the country.
So how are you addressing any privacy concerns people may have with this app?
That's a great question. And, this whole thing hinges on finding that right balance of privacy and saving lives. When we started this thing, maybe some of our initial instincts were saving lives is so important, so let's just put our values on pause. But I think that's such a bad idea. And I think it's exactly in times of crisis that our values are tested, and everyone says maybe our values can be put on pause. But we decided as a nonprofit organization that we're going to protect privacy and civil liberties, and we are actually going to hold them as being equal to those sorts of essential liberties as being equal to saving lives. And one of the fundamental ways that we're doing that is that the application is purely opt-in. Unlike China or Singapore, you're not going to be fined if you don't use the app. The app is your civic responsibility, if you want to think of it that way, to share where you've been in an anonymous way to alert people that you may have put at risk. On the second side is the app literally doesn't collect any information about you that we don't need. We don't collect your name, your phone number, your email address. There's no login. We don't want to know who you are. We just want to know if you're infected and where you've been so that we can alert other people. So, and then there's other techniques that we're using. So if you're someone that's healthy, the data on your phone actually never leaves your device at all. Only the people that are infected share their data. And we're going through great lengths to figure out how to redact all of this information so we don't accidentally, even if the organization gets hacked, end up leaking some sort of private information about your home or anything like that. And we've engaged the security community. We have a bug bounty program. We're encouraging hackers to hack us so that we can find the vulnerabilities in our security, before it's out there for citizens.
Whoop, froze up on us. There we go. Okay. So do you need to be HIPAA compliant for something like this or not?
Not in the absolute initial stages, but we are absolutely taking a lot of steps towards being HIPAA compliant, because that may become necessary in the near future. Because we see that the app would basically also be, what we want to do is to also enable the app to effectively be immunity certificate. So if you got tested and you have antibodies and you're immune, perhaps the app can effectively act as a boarding pass to let you get on a flight again, or to let you get on public transport again. For us to be able to get those sorts of health records into the app so that we can verify those test results, we think we will one day have to comply with laws like HIPAA and many others. And we're looking at all of those, but we are set up to be HIPAA compliant in the future.
I see that you see quite an application, a possible application for this in the construction industry. Why don't you talk about that for just a bit, if you would, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So another company that I co-founded and I'm the CEO of is called Rocket. I'm wearing my Rocket hat today. And, what many of your viewers might not know is that the construction industry has been declared a vital industry, even in this uncertain time. So many of us working in technology, we might, or media, we have the luxury of doing our job, sitting here, at home on our computers. But the construction industry workers don't have that same luxury. And it's important that they continue working, but it's also important that we keep them safe. So we found ourselves in a really interesting position where our technology that we've been building for the construction industry, that's building of roads, bridges, and highways, we'd long had the capability to do what we call electronic ticketing. And that's a way where if you complete a load of dirt or asphalt, you hand over a piece of paper, someone signs it, and that's your proof for you to get paid. Well, handing over these pieces of paper and getting touched by all these people has become a security risk. So all across the country, we're seeing just a massive increase in companies adopting our e-ticketing technology that allows these construction workers to stay 6 feet apart. And we're really proud and happy to serve them. We've given a lot of discounts and made our software free in certain situations to support this transition to electronic ticketing in the construction industry. But I've also been reflecting on the fact that we're very fortunate to be in a business, in an industry that is not nearly as hard hit as many others. And I think it's those of us that are blessed in that way, that have a responsibility to do more for the country and not just, sit on the couch and watch TV like the government might be telling us to do, but rather use every moment that we have, to contribute as responsible citizens, to our neighbors and to our country.
Great. Now, why don't we give some website addresses, because we've got about a minute or two left, where folks can find out more about your various companies. Let's start with Corona Trace.
Yeah, you can find Corona Trace at coronatrace.org. And you can find Rocket at goruckit.com, GORUCKIT.com.
And I'm assuming once you get through your beta test, you're going to put these on Android and iPhones, things like that?
Yeah, it's already ready for iPhone and Android.
So it's just a matter of what do you think that's actually going to be? I know it's hard to say when you're in beta, but I mean, what do you think? Another 30 days or less? Or?
No, we're looking at 2 weeks at the most.
So by May, then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Well, a good cause to support. And how are things down in Austin? How are you guys doing down there? I'm sure you're locked down too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, everybody's locked down here. I think our mayor here in Austin took some steps pretty early, and the cases haven't, we canceled South by Southwest, which is a big music festival, which is looking like a good decision in retrospect. And the cases haven't spiked too much. And I think the governor's already talking about reopening the economy soon. So I think we've been pretty lucky and pretty fortunate, here in Texas, and it's starting to be summer. And, if rumors are to be believed, weather does have a role here. So, hopefully we'll get through this okay. But, my heart does go out to the oil field, and, they're in a real pinch right now because there's no planes in the air, no cars driving, and nobody's buying the oil that they're pumping out, and it's a very difficult time for them. So Texas is not going to get through this without like a significant amount of hurt, but we're strong people, and we'll persevere.
All right.
All right, thanks very much, Tara Nimagata, and his app, the tracing app. We'll be right back with another segment in just a moment of the M2Techcast. For right now, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And you're watching at mitech.tv.com.
Lawrence Technological University graduates earn a degree and a higher starting salary. In fact, when it comes to earning potential, the Brookings Institution ranks LTU 5th among U.S. colleges and universities. Be enriched. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Yeah, he's not in yet.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Lawrence Technological University is more
All
than
right, let's see if I got his phone number here.
future, offering industry-leading facilities and 100+ programs that are ranked among the nation's best. Be unstoppable. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Well, let's go ahead and start, I guess, after this commercial, and we'll just wait for Fred to join us.
When it comes to earning potential, the Brookings Institution ranks
All right,
LTU.
I'll bring you in right after this one then.
Universities. Be enriched. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest of any university in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
You're up.
Lawrence Technological University graduate, you're not only marketable.
Sorry, I saw him on the phone.
Yes, more.
Right.
According to payscale.com, when it comes to graduate salaries, LTU is in America's top 100. Be invaluable. Be more. At LTU, possible is everything.
Salaries of Lawrence Tech grads are among the highest
All right, we'll come in after this one.
in America. Plan a campus visit to meet with counselors, faculty, and coaches. Why wait? Find out more at ltu.edu.
Hey, it's Matt Roush.
And Mike Brennan.
And we're waiting for our weird weekly Scare the Bejesus segment here, but we're waiting just a moment for him to call in. Our buddy Fred.
I think he said he was calling.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. His segments do freak me out every friggin' week. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me try him, call him again. Maybe I misunderstood. Okay, great. All right, so he said he was just coming in right now. So we'll edit all this out post-event, right?
Right. We'll fix it in post.
Yes,
this is for the people who are watching live.
Right. Yeah, you get to suffer through the beauty of live production. Yeah.
It'll look much cleaner once we edit it. Believe me.
Yes. Are you on a 3:00 deadline, Dave?
No.
Okay.
The next one actually doesn't come in until 4 today. So
Perfect. So let's just let this run about 13, 14 minutes, and as soon as we get Fred.
Yeah, no, my usual 3:00 call got pushed back to 5 today. So.
Well, I have his phone number. You could call him, I suppose. I'm not sure what the issue is.
Oh, is he trying to call in, or he's connecting via Zoom, right?
I thought he was. Gosh, I could call him back yet a third time here, but he keeps saying he's connecting. So. Let me see if we had a misunderstanding.
Yeah, because I don't even keep Skype active anymore since we've got this up and running.
Oh, you don't? I thought you do. Oh, okay. Well, stand by. I'm going to keep you on the phone.
Oh, is he having connectivity issues?
Yeah.
I see. You
Hang
telling me
on.
he should be able to just use the
It's
same link as last time
yeah, it's
because that's unique
the
for your
same link
show.
as last time, Fred.
Yeah, it's the same link every week.
Yeah, because that's unique for this time slot.
No, it doesn't change. So I sent it to you this morning. You should have that. Okay. All right, thanks. He said he was clicking on it, Dave. Let me know when.
I turned off the waiting room because he was the last guest, so he should just pop right in.
Welcome to live video.
Isn't it great? And people wonder why I keep my bar this well stocked.
All right, well, I just sent it to him again.
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, this has been pretty smooth. We've had 2 more shows come back and 3 new shows start up in the past week.
And they're all using this platform?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not all of them go Facebook Live like you guys do. I mean, probably only about half the shows that we have running right now do. Everybody else just wants, because I mean, the way I keep describing it to people is like, look, Zoom is as close as you're going to get to being in a studio right now. Yeah. But at least like you can get facial cues and you can see each other and body language and all that stuff. And then at a minimum, just like in the studio, we record audio. Well, right. Then also just like in the studio, we have cameras, so we can record video too if we want to, and we can also go Facebook Live if we want to.
Email, but it's the same. It's always the same link every week.
Well, and given a relatively decent computer, the sound quality, the picture quality is pretty good. Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, we've had a couple issues where people, especially people that have like Chromebooks, have issues.
Hang on. Dave, he says that he's clicking on the link and it says the host is in a meeting.
Well, yeah, it should, because we are.
Okay, so what does he need to do? I'm relaying this information here.
Tell you what, hold on. Let me pull your meeting invite up. New. Are you connected to him on Facebook?
Yeah, I got the phone, so he's listening to what you're saying.
Well, no, I know, but are you connected with him on Facebook?
I'm not sure if I am or not.
Or what's
well, the worst case scenario, Fred, you can call into the show.
What's his email address?
It's fred.brown.ch@gmail.com. Right, Fred?
Yes, that's right. But I have the Zoom. Everything's good. It says host has another meeting in progress. Is there a way to switch me in?
Okay, so just to be safe, I just shot him the calendar invite that has the correct Zoom link in it.
Did you hear that, Fred?
Okay. God, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't have the link. It says recurring meeting. I should have realized that I didn't receive any new link. And so let's see here. I've got the inbox. I've got PodcastDetroit. And I'm using this meeting. And I'm using this one. Here we go. And hey, it's working. We're set.
Let's see. I'm not going to.
Oh, here he is.
Here he is. Okay.
There we go.
I'm sorry about that connectivity.
Yay, technology.
Oh my gosh. How's everything been going?
Good.
Good. We're actually live, Fred. So this last 10 minutes, people on Facebook have been watching.
Great.
So,
Great. I'm ready to go. What would you like to hear about?
All right. So let's talk about the testing shortage. What we've been hearing, we had 2 guests on. We had Russell Schindler, who can put together the post-test results and then use those digitally for a lab. and we just had Corona Trace in where they can actually figure out people through their phones who has had it, and that sort of geolocation stuff. But what everyone is saying is what the biggest issue is testing. Was this?
There's not enough tests, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't do us any good if we don't have tests, right?
Yeah, it's a brand new virus, so it took us some time to figure things out. Actually, we're going at kind of record speed. We found out, we got the genetic code from the Chinese on January 12th. So that's when we actually could start looking for antibody tests and detection tests. And so there are three different kinds of tests. The first kind of test is a detection test, and they use a PCR technology, and they break open the virus, and they find a piece of RNA, and they match it, and they say, aha, you've got the virus. That's one test, and that tells you pretty quickly whether you're infected or not. The next test is an antibody test, and that tells whether your body has had to fight off the virus or not. So those are the two different tests. The antibody test, the first one was just approved by the FDA to go into production from Abbott Labs. It's called Rapid Test. It's part of their test suite. Everyone should have one at this point. The problem is we don't have enough of the kits, so we're short on the kits. And then the PCR technology, it's right now pretty manual. It takes some time to get what they call cartridges together, put the cartridges into a very rapid reading capability machine. So right now we're reading all these PCR machines by hand, and it's taking us a few hours. In a few months we'll have, and it's a long time to wait, but in a few months we will have tests that really are completely automated, and then we should start to reduce this backlog. It's a problem when you go into the hospital or see your doctor, and it takes you 5 or 6 days, or even worse, 10 days to get the results back. And so that's what we're trying to work on right now, is the backlog. That helps.
So the antibody tests are the same category. There just aren't any out there available, or very few, right?
Yeah, we have the machines, but the reagents have to be made. Right now, I think we have a capacity of doing about. I think Abbott has. They can do about 100,000 a week. I think they're going up to 200,000 a week shortly, in that range. So right now we're doing about 150,000 viral detection tests a week. And that's, so we need to do a lot more than that in order to really understand where the virus is and to get rid of the backlog we've got.
Is there anything the federal government can do? I've heard the Defense Production Act bandied about a lot to increase the production of the reagents and the other materials needed for these tests.
Well, there's not much we can. So we have a couple of different area issues. On the PCR test, we've got a problem with the swabs. It turns out that we put our manufacturing plant for swabs in Italy, right in the place where they had the biggest problem, the biggest problem with the coronavirus.
I was sure you were going to say China, but it's not this time. It's someplace even worse, right? Yeah. Okay.
And so our only solution is this little tiny factory in Maine called Puritan. And they manufacture swabs too, but the Lombardy plant called Copan is shut down. And it turns out that swabs are really important to get the right amount of stuff into the PCR machine. So we're getting a lot of challenges, putting the swabs in, taking them out, getting the right results back on the PCR test, and that's the viral detection test. On the antibody test, the issue is it just came out, and they have to manufacture enough of the kits and the reagents. So we're running short. So on one hand, we're getting swab problems. On the other hand, we're having a reagent supply issues. And it's working its way through the system, but it is extremely frustrating because we've got some really good, very accurate tests ready to go out, and we've got equipment in place, but the doctors just can't don't have the supplies to actually run them.
What sort of time frame are we looking at to even begin to really gear up?
Yeah, well, it depends on what you want to do, right? Right now we've got some control. We've run, as I said, about 100,000 tests a day. I think several. I think 2 million have been tested so far. But obviously that's a small part of the population. So in order to really ramp up, we've got to do. We have to test that level of we have to have that level of test about every day, believe it or not. So we have to get a lot faster and have a lot more capacity in our supply chain in order to do that. And that really tells you where the virus is, so you can start to fight the virus. Right now, we're sort of throwing knives in the dark, and that's tough.
Yeah, I know here in Michigan, I'm not sure if it's a lack of testing or if it's actually starting to work, but the number of new cases does seem to be falling per day here in Michigan, at least a little bit. What's your thought on that?
I think we've run through the peak, and that's great news. So, I've seen the data; it's flat, and so the question is, is it going to jump up a little bit more and then come down, or is it really peaking and coming down? And that's an important understanding to have. We have to know the difference between we're still climbing or we're coming back down. Once you start to come back down, and you know that you're going back down, then if you come back down with new cases, about 14 straight days, we can start to think about possibly looking at the option of reopening some of the, a part of Michigan. But right now we haven't gotten to that many days of straight going downward decline. That'll really tell us whether we're in a downward decline, and that's really great news, because then you can really start to plan the next steps. Right now we can't do that yet.
So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I think it's May 1st is when our lockdown supposedly is going to end. It doesn't sound like in what you just said that it's going to end on May 1st.
It's from the data we have right now. It doesn't look like it. I would say we're not going to hit the May 1st deadline. We're probably going to have to extend it slightly. So the trick is to get to what they call a reproductive value of less than 1. And once you get to a reproductive level of less than 1, that means the virus is starting to die out, because it's not reproducing itself, right? 1 to 1. If you only have 0.7 to 1, eventually it dies out. So once you get below 1, then the virus is starting to die out, and that's what we're trying to measure. Whether it's the dying or whether it's over 1, in which case every time a new one comes on, it's going to affect more people and it's going to actually expand again. So that's what we're trying to get to, a level below R1. And we know that social distancing is our best way of doing that. That helps our statistics right now. It helps get rid of about 0.6. So the virus starts at 2.3 or so. 0.6 of it's removed by social distancing. Then you start to protect some of your senior citizens, and they go down another 0.2, and then you start to do more testing and start to shelter people and so on, and that gets you down to the 1 level, and that's we're right around the 1 level right now, according to the most recent data, and we were actually slightly below 1 about 5 or 6 days ago. And then I think there were a couple things that happened. We got a little bit more relaxed, first of all. Second of all, we got a whole bunch of new test data that showed that started to change our model slightly. And for a few days there, we were actually below 1. And that was exciting to see, because we were actually doing it. But then it started to spike up again. And I'm not sure why. Sometimes it can just be that it's moving across the state, so you're getting more tests in a new area of the state, and you're have a little bit more than you thought. Other times it's because people got a little bit relaxed and ready to go out and about, and it bumped up again. So that was disappointing to see that go up.
There's a whole bunch of clinical trials going on for various treatments and vaccines. I know there's one that actually came out of Karmanos Cancer Center, where they're talking about using a low dose of an anti-cancer drug that disturbs, I guess, viral proteins to fight this thing. What do you think is most promising there?
So there are 2 different kind of scenarios of the future. The first is to have a real vaccine, like you get one time for polio and you're done with the virus. That would be ideal. And we think we've got a whole bunch of new ways of doing vaccines that are exciting. And if they work out, it could be that we have one of those in as little as 18 months, more likely more like 20, 24 months, but in that kind of range. Which would be fabulous, because then we could go back to a normal life. What's more likely is that we'll have a partial vaccine within that time frame, and then some drugs that adds to it. These buggers are really hard to get rid of. They're old, they evolved way before we did, and they have a lot of resistance. And so what we do, for example, HIV is we actually have to use a cocktail of drugs. And these kinds of developments that you hear about, an anti-cancer vaccine, anti-cancer drug here, chloroquine here, those are what they're doing is we're trying to hit the replication of the virus at a number of different states that it goes in. First at penetration of the cell, then at the replication of the nucleus, then at the endoplasmic reticulum, and so on, as it works its way and starts to take over our replication mechanisms in our own body. We start to try to block each of those at each step. And with HIV, we've got cocktails. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 drugs that we put together, and they block it at enough steps that it stops the virus. And that's what we're trying to get to with a cocktail of drugs like you're talking about there. But it's not really a vaccine, sadly. That'll mean that you got partial blockage of the virus in some cases and not others.
So this cocktail, when do you think something like that could be available? Yet this year?
I think so there are a couple of exciting studies that have come out. Remdesivir's just come out. That's the Gilead drug that's coming through. And the pre-publications of that looked extremely exciting, actually. Chloroquine is coming out with some interesting results, a little bit varied. So that's already 2 drugs you can start to mix. Well, that's not true. Chloroquine they're starting to mix with a couple of different options. Mostly with antibiotics, but then with the antiviral drug that Gilead had, remdesivir, they're trying to add beta interferon with that to help the penetration of the cell. So that those are a couple of drugs that are coming down the pike that are already kind of cocktail form, and you'll see more and more of them added to our mix to start to try to beat the virus off with different people, which is exciting. So that's sort of. So the kinds of things that I'm most excited about, WHO has selected 4 drugs I think are really interesting, and we're going through clinical trials with those 4 drugs now, and we'll see whether or not those are coming together. And that is a single big trial of 4 drugs simultaneously against the virus.
All right, so
it's called the Solidarity Trial, if people want to look at it.
Summer, fall, maybe?
Oh, so the drug, so remdesivir has already been approved for Ebola. So that could come out pretty quickly. What's nice about these drugs that are already on the market is you test them, they're already available. You can use them off-label, request your physician to go ahead and put you on the off-label list, and you already use that, he or she can already use that. And then eventually they have to actually go through clinical testing. And that takes a couple of years, but the point is you have access to a safe, well-manufactured, scaled drug that's already on the market. The more challenging ones are the brand new drugs that are coming out that are special just for this virus, and those will take 3 to 4 years. But that's sort of the mix we've got right now.
Okay. So social distancing for the remainder of the year or less, or more, what do you think?
So the experts are divided on this. The experts, but my personal opinion is this is going to be a long fight. This isn't going to be one we're done in August. Unfortunately, I wish I could say it is. What the president's plan is that we're going to stop the virus once, and then cold, which we've done now, right? It's getting we've kept socially distant for a long time, so now the virus load is down, and we're going to try to watch for hotspots as they come up and try to put them out. And that's the reason that these tests are so important. It tells you where the hotspots are. And the problem is we don't actually know where the hotspots are because we don't have enough testing density to figure that out. And so we could be surprised again. And I think it's going to happen the experts who looked at other kinds of SARS or MERS-like viruses indicate that we probably, if you look at the way the coronaviruses typically come and go, we're probably in for in each area of the country, we're probably into 6 or 7 more kind of outbreaks between now and 2021. So in the next 18 months, you can expect that we'll have to kind of modulate going up and then come back down, modulate coming up, and then we got a little bit of a hot spot, we'll have to come back down again. That's probably what is going to happen.
Yeah, right now the only way you can tell the hotspots is where the ICUs start getting overwhelmed, right? I mean,
yeah, and that's a great point, and that's a very late detection signal. By the time someone's in an ICU, you've already gone through 3 weeks. So if you think about that, if you have to wait 3 weeks to see your first indication, that means that with exponential growth, if you have an ICU rate, say, of 1%, and you have to wait 3 weeks, you are all, by the time you find out, they see that first ICU event, you've had to wait for, if you have a weekly replication, like you've had to wait for 3 replications, which means at a 1% rate of ICU involvement, which we're having right now, that means 3 weeks ago, you already had 100 cases, right? Yeah. So you already started with 100 cases and you just saw the first one 3 weeks later. By the time so every week it's replicating. So in week 2, you don't know, you haven't seen that case yet, you've got 200 cases. In week 4, in week 3, when you actually see that first case, you actually have 400 cases to worry about that are out there. So if we can move that signal back from ICU signal 3 weeks to a true test, then you know it after 3 or 4 days, and then you really can stop the virus. But if you have to wait till the person's, your first indication is an ICU bed, boy, that virus had a long time to work its way through the system. And that's the challenge we're having right now. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So that's why we need some more tests. We need them faster.
As usual, Mr. Sunshine here. Yeah.
It'll get better. It'll get better. Okay. It's a little bit of ways to go.
How much, last question, because it came up. How much does the temperature factor weigh in? For instance, typically on the flu season, you don't see as much in the summer. I wouldn't call this flu by any means, but do you think that's going to have any impact?
We are really hopeful. Most coronaviruses are labile. They are affected by the heat. Unfortunately, we don't know about this one. It's pretty early. And the problem is we're seeing a lot of it in hot tropical Africa, hot tropical India. And so we're thinking maybe we're not going to get so lucky, but that is a big factor for the flu. And what's nice about that is that the flu season's over, so we don't have to worry so much about the flu and getting both coronavirus and flu all at once, which is a thumbs up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Okay,
so
Fred, give us your contact information one more time if people want to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. It's fred.brown.ch@gmail.com. And I also have a site if you're interested. It's actually fredbrown.com. So feel free to check it out. It's all about the coronavirus, and I hope you guys, I hope it's helpful.
All right. Thanks very much, Fred Brown. Thanks to all our guests today here on the M2Techcast. We'll be back at 2 o'clock Eastern time next Monday. For right now, it's Matt Roush
and Mike Brennan.
And you've been listening to the M2Techcast.
Wow.
I am sorry.
All right, thank you, Fred.
I didn't realize it was a recurring meeting, so I was waiting, and then I said, well, they'll call me. And then it was just, I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of your but I clicked on it at 2:30, and I said, oh no, I can't figure this out. So I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
How did it all go? Was it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So the truth is we got a real fight on our hands here. I mean, it's going to be a rough one, and I unfortunately, know it that it's going to be a while before we get this thing under control. It's sort of a tough situation.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was running in a show last night that had Dr. Abdul Sayed on as one of the guests.
Beautiful.
And it's fascinating because his whole thing, because go figure, he's an epidemiologist.
Exactly.
And so he's he actually probably has a few opinions people want to listen to. Absolutely. And his whole take on it was kind of the same. Like, okay, no, may one not no, like that's horrible. No, well, and you look at, you just had all that crap that just happened in Lansing. You had, yet another party with cars doing tricks that gets busted up in Detroit yesterday. And dude, and it was funny. I was talking to Bob about it. I'm like, I'd like to think that 23-year-old me would have been smart enough to not go to something like that, but I'm not sure I can say that that's the case.
I'm working with some modelers who we're now getting enough data to really understand the population. And so Thursday last week, I called up and said, hey, we're below 1. And they said, yeah, we're below 1. So I'm so psyched. And then Friday, the whole thing just went to hell. And it was and we just.
Well, wasn't there a whole bunch of new cases come out of New York that was kind of behind that, or?
Yeah, so there are a couple. Yeah, exactly. They let in a few what they called suspected cases into the data set. Then they let in all the travel data set, and all of a sudden the data set blew up on us, and we said, oh my gosh, quite as close as we thought, first of all, but then second of all, well, we had a lot of more activity and new cases that were coming in because people were contacting each other.
Hey,
So
hey, Dave, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm just starting to. I'm getting ready to rip apart everything once you're done.
Okay. I was just going to say, I don't know if you want to get Fred on your show, but I think he'd probably be interested because you have a very big audience.
Actually, it probably wouldn't be the worst idea. We record Monday nights at 9 o'clock. Our show is called IT and the D. We used to be very hardcore tech, but now as long as you're doing cool stuff in and around the area we talk to you, we get anywhere from like 300,000 to 500,000 listeners an episode. I'll shoot you a note and see when your schedule works.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Because I can talk a little bit about the technology necessary to track and trace automatically as well. Singapore has a nice system in place. It's sort of interesting. There are some technical issues that we don't talk about so much, but happy to.
Yeah, I tell you what. Actually, if you're free next Monday night, let's go ahead and set something up.
Beautiful. I'd love to do it.
Okay, I'll shoot you a note. Awesome.
Sounds like a plan. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. I'll see you next week.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, see you guys.
You bet.
Yep, bye.